Welcome to the channel, BL Stories, where you'll find emotional, romantic, and heart-touching tales. I'm not just the papa, I'm also Aarav. Cafe Sama always seemed quiet, but that evening there was a strange weight within him, as if the driver himself was pulling Aarav's pain inside himself. Vivaan felt it as soon as he entered. No music was playing. Reyansh's laughter was nowhere to be found. And behind the counter, Aarav was just staring silently at a half-washed mug. A deep, faint smile beneath his eyes, and a smile on his face that was just for show. Vivaan moved forward. He only said softly, "Are you okay?" And at that one question, all the pent-up talk within Aarav began to flow. His voice slowed. "Well, sometimes I feel tired. Just trying to be a good dad, I'm losing my own self." And in that very moment, a tear fell from his eye. That strong Aarav, who always held everyone together, was falling apart today. Vivaan took his hand and said softly, "You don't need to be perfect, at least not in front of me." And just then, Aarav said something he had probably never said to anyone. "I'm not just Papa. I'm Aarav too, but everyone forgets." Vivaan looked into her eyes and replied, "I didn't forget." That moment was different. He was silent, but he said a lot. That night, a small misunderstanding occurred. Vivaan made a light joke, thinking it would lighten his mood. But Aarav misunderstood it. He said, "You've come to judge, not to understand." And in that moment, Vivaan felt a pang in his heart. He quietly left the cafe. The next morning, Reyansh understood everything. He showed Vivaan a small drawing. Teen stick figures. One had me written on it, another Papa on another, and the third, Vivaan. Vivaan's heart was filled with joy. He asked, "Am I in this too?" And Reyansh innocently replied, "Obviously, you're like family." In the evening, Vivaan returned to the cafe. He placed the same drawing on the counter. He didn't say anything, he just placed it. Aarav stared at the drawing for a long time. Then he slowly raised his head and said, "I'm sorry." And at that moment, Vivaan understood. This apology wasn't just a word. It was Aarav's door slowly opening for him. Vivaan smiled. "Get used to it. I'm about to stop." And when Reyansh shouted from behind, "Papa, give Vivaan uncle a hug," both of them laughed. And then Aarav, breaking the silence of his heart for the first time, pulled Vivaan close. A hug. Deep, exhausting, but so true that all words seemed useless. That moment wasn't a confession, but still, something had changed. And somewhere in the corner of his heart, Aarav felt that perhaps for the first time, someone wanted to stay, not just to be his father, but also just to be Aarav. Chapter 6. You don't have to say love to understand. It was Sunday. The same slow-moving time, the smell of hot coffee, and laughter lingering against the wall. Reyansh was sitting in Vivaan's lap, listening to his school's monster teacher story. And behind the counter in front, Aarav was wiping his glasses, glancing between them repeatedly, his slight smile as if he himself was realizing that this cafe wasn't just a cafe anymore. For Vivaan, this place had become a home, filled with the scent of cinnamon, Reyansh's laughter, and a sense of belonging. But the world of comfort is always tested. That day, 2 new customers came to the cafe. They sat on the window seats, and their conversation slowly drifted through the air. Too young to be a father, maybe his mother has left him. Single dads are irresponsible. The words were soft, but they were cut off with a sudden impact. Vivaan ignored them at first. Then he looked at Aarav. His face calm, but his hands trembled slightly. His jaw tightened. He had heard it too, and he was pretending as if nothing had happened. A wave of protectiveness rose within Vivaan. He got up from his seat and went straight to the women's table and said, "Excuse me. Do you always make fun of people while ordering coffee?" The air became heavy. The women looked at him in shock. Vivaan continued, "I'm lucky I get to spend time with that man and his son, and believe me, they don't need to prove it to anyone." The woman had no answer. She got up, muttering. And Vivaan went back and sat down with Reyansh, opening a picture book. But by then, something had changed inside Aarav. After closing the cafe that night, Aarav didn't go to the kitchen for the first time. He came straight to Vivaan. Breaking the silence, he simply said, "Someone defended me for the first time." Vivaan raised his head. "Someone should have." Aarav's voice broke softly. "I'm used to people staring. Questions. Sometimes even Reyansh asks, 'Dad, why aren't we a normal family?'" Vivaan's heart swelled. "What do you say to that?" Aarav said softly, "I say, we're normal in our own way." And Vivaan, that very moment with a straight heart, said, "The way you are is the most beautiful thing, Aarav." Aarav just stared at him. He was about to say something when Reyansh's voice came from behind. "Papa?" "Vivaan, uncle. Story time." The moment ended, and Aarav just smiled. Duty calls. That night, during bedtime story time, Reyansh was sitting snuggled between them. Suddenly, he looked up and asked, "Papa, when I grow up, will Vivaan uncle still be here?" A silence fell over the room. Reyansh innocently continued, "I think you two share a similar smile. That's why you should stay together." And then he fell asleep with his toy elephant. Aarav and Vivaan remained silent. Neither said anything, nor denied anything. Only one thought lingered in the air between them. Are we really becoming each other's family? Chapter 7. When you're together, everything feels even better. Today's story begins with a small sketch. Reyansh made a drawing in school, 3 stick figures, a long-haired figure, which he labeled Vivaan, a large-handed one, Papa, and a small one with a crooked crown, and wrote, "Me." The teacher said with a smile, "What a beautiful family picnic, Reyansh." And that's where the idea began. In the evening, when Reyansh placed the drawing on the counter and said, "Now we'll go on a picnic," then Aarav smiled, becoming a little practical, and said, "Taking a holiday isn't easy." But then Vivaan entered, and with his usual confident smile said, "Come on, I'll make the plans this time." And that was it. The picnic was decided. The next morning, the 3 of them went for a short drive, far from the city, to a quiet riverside park, where the breeze was soft, the trees swayed gently, and the sound of the water was soothing. Vivaan had brought his snacks, Aarav had packed sandwiches, and Reyansh, his toy elephant and drawing. For him, that was the real essence of the picnic. Aarav looked different that day, in a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, shades on his head. Not a tired cafe owner or a father drowned in responsibilities. Just a man. He was smiling genuinely in the sunlight, perhaps after years, and Vivaan was unable to stop himself from looking at him again and again. The day passed in fun and frolic, frisbees, chips, selfies, Reyansh's bunny ear pose. Everyone enjoyed it. For a few hours, the three of them forgot their roles. No father, no student, no responsibilities. Just three people, like a small family. A point came when Aarav lay down on the picnic blanket, gazing at the sky. Vivaan sat next to him, and Reyansh, exhausted, was half asleep on top of them. Just then, Aarav said softly, "You're good with him." Vivaan smiled slightly. "He's easy." But there was something else in Aarav's voice when he said, "No, you make it easy." And after saying this, he looked at Vivaan with his eyes as if he wanted to say something, but couldn't. Then came the question that changed everything. A small voice, Reyansh's. "Vivaan, uncle, if you and Papa get married, will I become your son?" Time stopped for a moment. Aarav fell silent. Vivaan blinked and stared at him. And Reyansh continued speaking in his innocence. "The teacher says that in marriage, two people become one. So if you two become one, then I will be the luckiest, right?" Vivaan laughed lightly at his words. "You already are the luckiest, champ." But Aarav's face held a softness that spread far and wide, a flicker in his eyes, as if about to say something, but couldn't. The evening colors turned amber, the sun was setting. The three were back on the blanket. Reyansh had fallen asleep, holding both of their hands. Vivaan looked up at the sky and said, "It's been years since I felt so peaceful." And Aarav replied, "You bring peace even in my chaos." Vivaan looked at him and simply asked, "Then why do you feel like you're still hiding something?" Aarav lowered his eyes. "Because I'm hiding." Then he spoke softly to himself. "I want to trust you. On us. But I have a 5-year-old son who depends on me. I can't risk fantasy." Vivaan's reply was quiet. "And what if it's not a fantasy? Just a slow reality?" Aarav glanced at him, but before he could say anything, Reyansh grabbed both of their hands tightly, and they both fell silent. But this time, even in silence, their hands didn't separate. Chapter 8. If someone else came near you, I couldn't bear to see them. Something had changed after the picnic. Aarav's smile grew more prominent. Vivaan had started staying longer at the cafe, and Reyansh, he would proudly say whenever he introduced every new person, "He's my dad's best friend, but I think we'll become family." Vivaan always laughed. Aarav blushed with slight embarrassment, but never admitted it. Everything was soft, slow, safe. Until Ravi came to the cafe. Ravi was a new chapter. Tall, confident, oozing corporate charm. He entered Cafe Sama's door with a box of sweets and flashed a warm smile. "Hey, Aarav! After so many years..." Vivaan, who was sketching in a corner, raised his head. And Aarav? Aarav's smile was different, genuinely warm. "Ravi, you're back?" Yes, just shifted last week. Thought I'd check if your famous cafe was still standing. And both of them burst out laughing. Ravi placed his hand on Aarav's shoulder in friendship, a gesture that touched Vivaan's heart. Ravi sat down in the cafe. He drank coffee and refreshed his college memories. He offered suggestions on investments, business ideas, and how to modernize the cafe. Aarav just listened, smiling and nodding. And by then, Vivaan's coffee had cooled. Then Ravi casually asked, "So, you manage all this alone? Do you have a partner? Do you have anyone in your life yet?" Aarav hesitated a bit, then said with a faint smile, "No one serious." At that moment, something inside Vivaan went tight. No one serious? Even after so much talk? Ravi laughed and said, "Wait, well, that's good news for old friends." And Vivaan quietly got up and went to the back room of the cafe. In the silence of the kitchen, Aarav came up behind him. "Are you okay?" he asked. Vivaan didn't even look at him. "You were laughing when he asked if you had anyone in your life, and you said no one serious, as if I were just a helper." Aarav came a step closer. "Vivaan, it wasn't like that." Vivaan took a deep breath. "I know. Still, it stung." The silence stretched. Then he turned around and said with tired eyes, "If anyone else came near you, I can't see them." Aarav fell silent. His face was filled with guilt and something else, fear, a deep emotion. Vivaan continued, "I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just saying. You're not a joke to me. I'm not playing a game." Aarav lowered his eyes. He said softly, "I know. That's all. Nothing more." Yet Aarav's voice trailed off as Vivaan started to leave. "Ravi is an old friend. Let him be. But you don't go." Vivaan remained silent. He didn't say yes or no, but he didn't go either. That night, as the cafe closed, a silence hung between them. Aarav tried twice to start a conversation, but words eluded him. And as Vivaan picked up his bag and started to leave, Aarav's voice trailed off again. "Vivaan?" Vivaan turned around. Aarav was tired. There was vulnerability in his eyes. "I can't imagine with anyone else what I'm living every day with you." Vivaan blinked. "Then why don't you tell me?" Aarav's gaze fell. "Because if I say it, it might change everything." And in that moment, Vivaan took a step forward. He said softly, "Some things are not lost by saying them. They are lost by keeping quiet, Aarav." And this time he left. The biggest danger in relationships of the heart isn't always from someone else. Sometimes the danger is from one's own silence. Chapter 9. Everything feels right with you. The entire day was filled with sadness, as if the clouds were holding back their tears. By evening, the cafe was empty. Bell's soft chime had left with the last customer. Aarav and Vivaan were closing the cafe, but something wasn't right. Reyansh, always the heart of the cafe, was lying curled up on the sofa. His cheeks were warm, his eyes were tired, and his voice was completely slow. Aarav examined his forehead, and his heart stopped for a second. "It's very hot." Vivaan came closer. "He hasn't eaten much today, and he hasn't even talked." Aarav's face was filled with panic. He must have caught a viral fever. But if I leave him alone and go get medicine... Vivaan interrupted. Give me the list. I'll bring the medicine. And he left without a trace. By then, the rain had turned into a storm. The lightning was howling, the wind howling, and Vivaan, drenched from head to toe, returned with medicines in hand. Aarav opened the door, standing with Reyansh in his arms. He's shivering now. Vivaan didn't ask anything. He just stepped inside. This was the first time Vivaan had seen the inside of Aarav's house. A small place. Warm yellow walls, soft toys stacked in corners, the smell of turmeric soup wafting from the kitchen. The house wasn't perfect, but it was filled with love. Vivaan put on one of Aarav's old hoodies, a little loose, but cozy. Reyansh was wrapped in blankets, half asleep, uttering just one word. Papa. Vivaan quietly sat beside him, gently stroking his hair. Aarav stood a little distance away, a heavy worry in his eyes. Vivaan said without looking at him, "You rest. I'll sit with him." Aarav didn't argue. He just nodded and came and sat beside him. Their shoulders brushed slightly, and neither one slid back. The rain had intensified outside. Vivaan said softly, "He'll be fine." There was silence for a few seconds. Then Aarav's voice rang out, a little heavy, a little heavy. "Sometimes I feel scared." Vivaan turned towards him. Aarav spoke softly, "That I am everything to him. What if I break?" Vivaan looked straight into his eyes. "Then I am." Aarav's eyes were glassy, his voice lower than a whisper. "You are there. And because of this, everything starts to feel even more scary." Vivaan remained silent. He simply extended his hand forward, lightly brushing Aarav's. He didn't hold it. He didn't force it. He just touched it. And Aarav didn't pull back. Reyansh murmured softly in his sleep, "Papa, Vivaan uncle, don't go." A small smile appeared on Aarav's lips. His heart broke and mended itself in an instant. Vivaan leaned a little closer. It was the closest moment between them. Aarav looked into his eyes. A question lingered in the air. An answer, too. Pal was the kind of person who didn't demand to speak. And this time, neither of them said anything. They just felt it. Because some confessions aren't made with words, but with silence. And sometimes, just the release of hands says it all. Chapter 10. If you were here, I could be myself again. The morning was very mild. The storm of last night had passed, but the wind still carried the scent of rain. It was as if a new, bright day was beginning. Reyansh was feeling a little better. Wrapped in a small blanket, he was sipping soup and watching cartoons. On the other side, Vivaan was in the kitchen, half asleep, wearing Aarav's hoodie and trying to make toast. But the toast kept burning, because he was quietly singing to himself. And Aarav? He was standing quietly by the door, watching them both. And then he realized something, slowly, like sunlight entering a dark room. This wasn't just kindness. This wasn't just temporary. This was love. Vivaan looked back and laughed slightly. "Toast disaster part 4, he said. But Aarav didn't smile. He just slowly walked towards her and stopped in front of her. Vivaan's smile slowly faltered. "What happened?" he asked. And Aarav looked straight into his eyes and said, "I'm tired. of pretending to be close to you even while staying away from you. Vivaan went completely still. Aarav? Aarav's voice was a little shaky, but there was no fear in his eyes. I love you, Vivaan. Everything stopped for a moment. Cartoons were playing in the background, a kettle was hissing, but in that moment, the world had shrunk to just two people. Vivaan's heart was pounding, and Aarav stood by his truth. I tried to hide it, Aarav said. I felt I wasn't allowed to fall in love again, not with a child, not with my wounds. But with you around, everything felt fine. Vivaan laughed softly through his tears. I waited so long to hear that, he said. I've wanted your love for so long, Aarav. And then Vivaan took a small step forward and planted a very soft, trembling kiss on Aarav's forehead. No lips, no fire, just tenderness. Because sometimes love starts quietly. Just then, a voice called from behind. Papa? Reyansh was standing in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. Why are you both crying? Vivaan quickly wiped his tears and smiled. Papa's eyes lit up. Aarav added, and Vivaan uncle got a little emotional. Reyansh tilted his head and said innocently, so now you two hug. When I'm sad, you two hug me. Aarav looked at Vivaan. Vivaan opened his hands, and Aarav was swept away by the warmth he'd been denying all these days. Reyansh also slipped between them, giggling. 3 people, 1 hug, 1 house. Sometimes love wins before confession, and sometimes it starts with a childhood drawing and reaches the scent of a toaster. Aarav was no longer just a father, and Vivaan was no longer just a student. They both became just ours.